Perfect, perfect. Привіт, Canada. I'm Pavlo MOROZ. Um, I was a fellow in Boston for a year at Harvard, 2002, 2003 at Boston Children's. I'm a pediatric spine surgeon and trauma surgeon, now I'm McMaster. And I want to share with some time with you with our experience in a fellowship program here at McMaster. Let's see where I might have lost my vision of the slides. Yikes. Yeah. Okay, where is that? Okay, so yeah, funding for fellowships, some disclosures here. Um, we receive no financial compensation for any of these activities. Opinions are my own. We all know what happened back in 2022, the carnage that's occurred. We don't have to go over. Some of our fellows have come back and shown us how their world changed when that all started. And we all know that with every fatality, there's multiple injuries that are nightmares for all of us. And these kinds of injuries for orthopedic surgeons are horrendous, given the not just the bony problems, but the bone defects, the flap problems, the all the issues. So, like all of us in this room, there and here, all over the world, the diaspora responded. Mark Bahuta and I, Mark was a resident of mine in orthopedics, and we both Ukrainian Canadians started responding to the war with virtual support with our colleagues of Ukraine and doing virtual rounds, doing consults on WhatsApp almost every day, talking about cases, advising, trying to get them stuff. Since Mark and I are both spine guys, we had a lot of spine colleagues there. Kharkiv reached out to us because we know from the literature that in any conflict, civilian or military or mixed, that these buildings falling down and these ordinances going off, it's a huge impact on spine injuries and huge resource involvement. So they needed equipment, and so we rallied. I had been working in the U.S. for a while in Hawaii and managed to get most of Hawaii's extra spine and small and large fragment sets and send them to Ukraine and all over the place. And some pictures on the right show some of our recipients. We've been very successful that way with spine equipment, but also all of the other basic stuff, the X fixes that they need. We managed to do some targeted support and send some operating microscopes, which is a big game changer for flaps. We work with Lou Zirkle in Seattle to translate the Sign IM Nail system for Ukrainians. And so as we gained traction, so did our faculty, and McMaster jumped on. And so we started with observerships. We get a lot of international fellows at McMaster, and they're hands-on. Mark Mims is very interesting evolution. What he's going through is what we went through in Canada maybe 20, 25 years ago, where big places like U of T, Michelle, Kishore Molpur at UBC, McGill, Hamilton, our McMaster have been bringing in fellows which are hands-on, but it's a lot of paperwork and credentialing and the lawyers, just like Mark's going through right now. But it's totally worth it because if we're going to help the world, we have to do this. And it is the lawyers, it is the credentialing, but it's doable. So we started with some quick observerships just to bring people in and to work things out. We wanted them hands-on. And even our observers actually are allowed to scrub in, but then they're supervised directly and not allowed to do certain parts. But then now they've morphed into fellowships. So the complex wound care, the multidisciplinary approach is really important. In Ukraine, they seem to like to work in silos. So the infectious disease guys aren't talking to the surgeons, and the surgeons handle all these complex infectious disease problems. That's not going to work. I don't deal with the complex infectious multi-organism defects in these horrible wounds. I can't. I'm an orthopod. We need the big guns, and so we need them collaborating, and that's what we're trying to do. Orthoplastics, the big problems like bone defect solutions, osseointegration to optimize amputations are things we're trying to expose all our fellows to here, as well as implants and hardware. And that's a whole nother talk about implants and hardware for Ukraine, and we have to work towards that. Knowledge transfer. We're getting them involved in rounds. They're presenting rounds, M&Ms, meetings. They're actually taking call too. And so that's good for them as well. And then we want to help develop the future leaders in Ukraine. So they're going back with with this knowledge. So as we got bigger and got a little bit more funding, we got some administrative help with Tony Marzotto and Vida to help us out here. Our fellowships have morphed on now from observers. We're working on 6-month fellowships. Observers tend to come for short periods of time. And there's a role for observers because some advanced Ukrainian surgeons might want to come and visit just for learning the silo issues, the multidisciplinary approach. And so we don't maybe need to credential them super duper, but the fellows, we want them hands-on right in there, taking call and doing that sort of thing. Most of this is happening at the Hamilton General Hospital in the McMaster area, level 1 trauma center, one of the biggest trauma centers in Canada. We have them doing all the big cases. Again, as I said, we integrate them into the clinical teams. They're doing the operations. They're under supervision. You know, you have to be prepared to, like Mark was going through his evolution, which is exactly like we did years ago. You have to prepare to observe them. Our colleges, credentialing colleges here, want to see reasonable mitigation of risk, as our risk mitigation managers and lawyers want to. So that's what you have to go through. But you just have to be reasonable, documented, and get it through the legislature and that sort of thing. Again, we get them at conferences. We get them giving talks to the diaspora in Canada to forge ties. Our 6-month fellowship budget actually is pretty cool. 36,000 American. Approximately 80% of that goes to the Ukrainian doctors' stipend, licensing, travel, settlement, housing accommodations. 20% we're using right now for coordination and management, mostly for our program directors' supplementary wages for helping us with this stuff. Education I'll move on to the Ukrainian participants that we've had for the last couple of years. 4 females, 8 males, a mix of civilian and military. Their average age is 32 years of age. Ortho trauma is 8 of them, an infectious disease, 1 of them. We've had a nephrology person and a family medicine person as well. And you can see the places that they've been from: Kiev, Vinnytsia. Their years of experience after residency is about 11 years. And we'll explain that a little bit. And the duration of participation initially has been about 2.5 months, but we're morphing it now to 6 months. And I'll tell you why in a second. Here's our thing. So how are we evaluating? We're evaluating like any resident or fellow coming over to our programs. It's all the same kind they do at Boston when I was a fellow, or in Hawaii at UH there. It's always nice getting testimonials from these guys. You know, I've become a better technical surgeon in Canada, and I've learned some big picture lessons. This is exactly the thing we want to hear, because that big picture is so important. Like Vasil Strilka yesterday explained, or Alexander Luchovsky was talking about the underperforming and that kind of thing, and we need that. So our early findings of Ukrainian MD participants, some are superlative. We'd almost want to hire them, but we don't, because we don't want the brain drain. We don't go that way. Some are not very good, and you have to know how to deal with that, including thinking about sending fellows home if they're not, after remedial work, are just not up to stuff. We have not had to do that with any Ukrainian fellows, but we have done that in the past with other international fellows. But most of these residents are very good. We found the young surgeons are more inexperienced than we thought. Some of them come working at a PGY 2 or 3 level, and then we have to revamp them from a fellow to kind of a resident. They can't. These guys can't do fellow call to support residents who are superior to them. So that gets awkward, but there's ways around that. Their training is much shorter in Ukraine, 2-year residency, much like the Soviet Union was in the past. Why is that the case? They don't have funding in Ukraine. I don't know if they have faculty infrastructure. I think they do, but it has to get organized. There are very few government-funded positions. Most residents have to pay tuition to be a resident. And who's got money in Ukraine to pay for 5 years of residency? So that's another issue. But, and this has been published. Harvard put out a paper on international residencies. Here up at the top, you can see all the different countries and what they're like. Russia's 2 years of residency training, and Ukraine's followed that post-Soviet era legacy that we have to shake, because you can't learn orthopedics in 2 years or even 3 years. So, and the Ministerstvo Охорони Здоров'я Ukraine understands that, and Nakaz has been issued. But you know, you guys are at war, and I can understand that. So, Other early findings that the length of fellowship is a factor. Interestingly, like we like to bring fellows over for a year, get them solid training. 3 years maybe, or 3 months is a bit maybe too short. But job security in Ukraine is an issue. They come to Canada for 3 months, and their job back home is not secure. You know, these kinds of stressors we don't think about ahead of time. We think, oh man, they're coming to Canada for a 3-month fellowship. You know, they're going to come back and they're going to have that under their, you know, they're going to want to hire them. They've got a lot of more experience, but that's not the case. Job security. So very interesting. We find the ideal length of time then is about 6 months. You can learn enough if you're experienced and to take stuff home. Standard of care, of course, is different, and they're learning that. IM rods, for example, they're not used to IM rods, even transitioned to IM rods. Their X-fixes in Ukraine has always been used as a definitive management from the Elizarov X-fixes and stuff like that. And then the implants again are you know, from a variety of places, and they need to update on that. So we have been talking with the various Ukrainian government agencies, education, universities, medical schools in Bohumolets, Vinnytsia, and Ivano-Frankivsk. And we're working towards morphing up our fellowships to include spine and neurotrauma. So we're getting our first spine trauma fellow in April. We want to morph to critical care anesthesia, plastics, pediatric orthopedic surgery as well. And then our plan is also to morph towards a residency reform pilot project with one of the universities that we're partnering in to pilot a residency reform initiative, which is so important. What are challenges going forward? Stable funding is always a problem. I'm surprised by orthopedic industry support has not been as robust as we had hoped for a variety of reasons. There's lots of competing interests, like we're working on training. Do we work on training? Do we work on equipment? Do we do education reform? Can we do it all? No, we can't do it all. That's why meetings like this are so important. So we all get to know each other and get to partner and find out who's doing what, and then talk about how we can bring things to scale and work together. And there's always competing interests, like do we address short terms, like surgeons right now with the latest techniques, or you know, residency reform, sort of what I just talked about. So in the interest of time, I want to acknowledge Canadian credentialing agencies for allowing reasonable educational licensure over the years to allow participants to scrub in and to operate. Again, solutions to all these problems, meetings like this, partnerships with all of you. Maybe we should concentrate centers of training in various areas, all sorts of things. So there's some of our contact information. Contact me, please. I'd love to talk to you. It's great getting pictures like our guy here who's taking a mortar tail out of somebody, and he's learned a lot of you know, complex handling while he was the Hamilton General. So great to see you all. Wish I was there, and take care.